the work.
I mean,
Contradictory to.
I get being
intent.
hungry,
It's
but,
a
you know.
place to be for a long period of
Yeah,
time.
normally I put in the 60-40, and that one I didn't. You
Okay.
usually noted, so.
Okay, that helps.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. There are no minutes to present. Appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Consider the nomination of Brian Henkel to be Director of Public Works effective January 17, 2023.
Well, I'm excited that Brian has agreed to join us as the position of Public Works Director. He's following the very able footsteps of Tony Smith, who's been here for 21 years. Brian is a member of our community, which is always exciting to bring somebody in that's a member of the community. Volunteer on numerous boards and committees, has a bachelor's of civil engineering degree from Texas San Antonio, and a very good work history, particularly in public management and supervision. So I think he'll be a very excellent addition and will follow nicely in the footsteps of Tony.
I'll move approval.
Well, I'll second the nomination.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, if we could, I guess when I first saw this, I know that Brian is heavily involved. He's the chair of the school board. And if I'm not mistaken, the vice chair of the AOS board. And, you know, I asked Derlin about that and whether that, I mean, and so I have some concerns about that because of the size of the two budgets are enormous. That's a big responsibility for our town. And I also have some concerns about I don't even know how to describe it. I'm not going to call it conflicts of interest, but the overlap and the bias and the last. And so I wanted to have you comment, if you would, on what your thoughts are on you know, this job that you're taking on is a big job.
Yeah.
And it is a job that is supervised by our town manager. And is not one that, you know, is, I don't know, I don't want to go into a deep description of the job, but I wondered if you could speak to that issue of your overseeing of some very large portions of our budget, which one of which you have some influence over, and the other which you just execute for the most part.
Yeah, well, that was a concern that was brought up, you know, outside of this, as we were looking at this position and knowing that I was, you know, chair of the NDES school committee and also vice chair at the AOS. And so we did ask for, you know, opinions from legal counsel,
Yeah.
from the town and from the school, and there's not an inherent conflict according to either of those. And there's also not anything that prohibits me with respect to state statutes or town charter. So all of that was looked at in terms of those two positions. I do understand a bit like your concerns about the two positions, and I want to tell you immediately up front that the primary position that I would have would be town and public works director. That would be where my primary responsibility lies. I would like to try and stay on the school board if I can. Okay. I'm aware that there may be overlap, there may be a significant amount of work, and that it may not work out. And that will mean that I'll have to focus on the public works director role instead of, but I don't want to step down yet if I don't have to. I would like to see how it goes.
Okay.
And see if I can work it out. And I think I can work with Derlin and with Jake and the school committees and the school board and work through whatever there is where there might be. I don't know if there is necessarily exactly overlap, but there are adjacent budgets and they're both pretty significant budgets. If I can work it out, I'd like to do it. And if I can't, then my path is pretty clear and I'll let you know. And I'll be stepping down from the school committee.
I appreciate that. I should have prefaced this whole thing, but I had no questions about the recommendation, your qualifications to do the job of public works director. I just, you know, as our responsibility is to obviously oversee the expenses that we pass on to our taxpayers. And then, you know, there's significant, you know, between the school and with the AOS having grown quite large and the AOS board only having representation for a couple of members from them, but they're not all elected by our town, but they can pay in the high school budget and all these things. There's a lot of money that's sort of handed to us as a town that we have to collect. So I just was worried about it. And just the last thing was a few weeks ago, when you were talking about some projects and before this even came up, we're talking about asking us to consider whether or not we'd like to partner with the school to add the basketball courts and the pool and to some projects that you saw for the school. And that's really the thing that was like,
Right.
that kind of, you couldn't do that as far as I'm concerned, from the same, if you had the public works director position, it'd be different is all.
Yeah, there are different types of roles though.
Yeah.
As an elected official on the
I
school
know.
board, that is the role where your constituents are the students, and what your role there is to see that the schools are run well, but not
Right.
to run the schools. Whereas here, this is a little bit different.
Yeah, okay.
with The public works, and so because of the difference in roles, I think there's maybe not as much an overlap.
No, that's fair.
Exactly. And then when it comes to something like partnering with the town, where the public works director, which all of that is in, was someone that was involved with whatever contract went forward for, doing work on the school and potentially that contract being shared. I would just have to make sure I'm, clear with Derlin about all that's going on, and just ensure that if there is any even hint of
Right.
conflict, that I can recuse myself at the school board level and not participate in it there. My primary responsibility is going to be public works director, and I'll do what I need to ensure that I don't have any perceived conflicts.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I just would be remiss if I hadn't brought up my
Sure.
concerns about it. So thank you for your response.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? When is Wendy on?
I don't see Wendy. I don't see her up there. So before is that?
Yeah. Or is it?
Welcome, Brian.
Welcome. Do you have any idea what you've gotten yourself into?
A little bit.
Okay, I know, you probably did. You probably have a better idea than anybody else. All right, confirm appointment of Claire Wolfick as registrar of voters effective January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2024.
Move confirmation.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appointment of BOS member as liaison to the Luso Committee.
So what that is Matt was the liaison, and when he resigned, you guys never formally
Okay, yeah.
appointed anyone. I know, Rick, you attend those, don't you?
Sure do.
But there's no one formally appointed as liaison. Want to be formal?
Have been before when we started
All right.
Luso.
I would nominate
Rick.
Rick Moores.
Okay,
Yeah, second.
good. All in favor?
You're it.
Okay,
All right.
very good. Consent agenda renewal, item A, renewal of limited purpose agriculture license for 2023. LP license requesting renewal KZI M118. Item B, Hancock County Commissioners Special Meeting Minutes from November 15, 2022. Item C, bypassing notice to Juniper Ridge landfill in Old Town instead of going to Perk. Item D, municipal solid waste bypass notice from the MRC due to overloaded tipping floor. Item E, annual meeting work tasks and partnership progress updates. And item F, thank you letter from State Senator Nicole Roholsky.
Move acceptance of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Good. I do have one thing. What is license renewal KZIM 118? Does anybody know?
This was just sent from DMR.
I saw that
Yeah,
and it doesn't tell us what that is. And we complained about this last year.
Yeah, that was all the information I was sent.
I think it's the zone in which the agriculture farm actually occupies.
Yeah, but which one is it? Which is which?
Which
license?
limited, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
this is the harbor master. When they come in an email form, there's a link to click on them and look at them, and it will bring you to which one it is. There was 2 or 3 that showed up, And I'm not sure exactly which one this is, but I looked at all three of them. And they are all insignificant and out of the way, and they do not bother anything. They're just people doing test aquaculture is what it is. It's very
Okay.
small.
Okay,
One of them is over in Otter Creek. The other one is over in the Mill Pond over by Pretty Marsh. So they're not in anybody's way. And you know, I've looked over them before, and they're
there's
all
nothing.
good.
okay. All right. Okay, and no other comments?
No, I was just gonna.
All in favor? Great. Okay. Selectmen's reports. Any selectmen's reports? Okay, so I will say that we got our grant for, I guess it was the community resiliency grant came in. And so we have some work to do. We have to get some contracts put together in the mail to fulfill our two major goals for that grant. That's all I got. Anybody else?
Do you want to just say what those two major goals are? for
Yeah,
people?
the one goal was to hire somebody part-time to populate the ICLEI database, which is our carbon emissions estimator and evaluator. And the other is to hire an engineer to look into, or somebody to look into possible site for solar farms and so forth, so we can move forward with our identifying a solar farm solution. Phil, anything?
I think you said it correctly. So basically, we're looking maybe at a part-time position, like 1 day a week, like an eight hours a week.
Yeah.
32 hours a month, not like something similar like Bar Harbor where they have a full-time person. Let's see how it works. Let's see the type of, we'll take my mask off so you can hear me. See what the, what the performance is. Are we getting what we were looking for out of this person instead of just taking up space? There's a lot of research that needs to be done, and the database part is really key for the carbon study. One last thing on the solar farms, after the first of the year, the town would be eligible for a 30% tax credit on any farm that we did create, and that was not available until after the first of the year. That was part of the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. So it'd be a very advantageous thing for the town to move forward where possible, or use some of the existing sites that we've already looked at. Again, that's where engineers and people that have a little bit more credentials and volunteers. Thank you.
I might also, when you say solar farm, my understanding is that I think a lot of people would consider that a place, whereas what we're talking about is trying to explore ways to harvest solar power, but not necessarily all in one array. Is that so? Again, a solar, our town solar farm, so to speak, might be multiple sites, or what? We just need to find out what will work, what is possible.
Yeah, like we thought of the school.
Well, yeah, just it doesn't have to all be in one place. That's all. I just want to make sure that anybody listening is not thinking we're gonna like do what, like they clear cut some big area.
I don't think
Because
we
we're not.
really have a space in town. to really-
No, we don't. That's why we need to be creative.
Move the town to possibly lease. some
Could be.
land Like some of these other floats or do off island or on island.
Right.
Like an unused place that you could build on, i.e. like a
Quarry.
like quarry or landfill.
Or sand pit.
If this works, Bar Harbor did, they got a gravel pit.
Anyway,
Thank you, though.
All right, no other comments, unfinished business, item A, consider amendments to section 6.7.2, 6.11, and 7.3 of the non-union personnel policy to accomplish FY 24 implementation of a percentage-based longevity policy with amendments to section 6.7.2 being effective upon implementation of the percentage-based longevity system described in 6.11.
That was the one, I
Right.
remember a few
Mhm.
weeks ago, we showed you that particular proposal. That's, this, what this is the language that would actually make that happen.
Yeah.
It's the implementing language.
Jake, how does what we have now compare to the percentage? Maybe you've already given us this information, but you have just the percentage that it would be, but in terms of dollars.
Right, so the percentage is gonna be based on someone's base
Right.
salary, so it'll be dependent on.
So be all over the place, but,
You can see some of it showing up in your budget things.
yeah,
What those numbers plugged in were with that change, so. You could-
what's that?
So the numbers that were plugged in there would reflect
Okay,
that, so
oh,
you could see
so
what
that's
it
what
looked like.
I see it, yeah,
And they used to pay
right,
a dollar
Right.
amount or
I
a
understand.
quarter
Yeah.
or whatever, and the salary became more and more disparate
right,
as you went up the line by doing a percentage.
I understand that, I
It's
just
playing field, basically.
was curious about the,
Yeah, in terms of broad approach, the average effect of this was about an 8%. Raise, and that including the 3% CPI adjustment, so
That's
the
right, so
actual
5%.
longevity approach was about a little bit less than 5% on average about what this will mean
okay,
to employees. And that's baked in with all the considerations that we talked about.
that's right, thank you for refreshing my memory on that.
Move approval of the amendments as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Item B, governance policies for marina skating rink and acceptance of related contributions.
Did you get a chance to read? I know I was really pleased to work with the group that's putting this all together through the Mount Desert, Town Mount Desert, Community Development Corporation. So we started, I got a basic read off my insurance. If we were gonna have a skating rink, what would we need to do? So they set some general guidelines. And then the group took and then they worked and refined those and sort of made them applicable to our particular operation. And so pretty confident that what we've got here in front of you will protect the town to the degree it can ever be protected from liability. There's no guarantee that you won't have liability because life is risky. And skating rinks are risky compared to some others, but this will cover us under the Maine Torts Claims Act to the, I think, to the maximum degree possible. What I want to do is with this, part of this describes a person that will be helping us take care of the rink, making sure it's safe and doing some lessons for hockey and things like that. And Peter is in the audience. You've read his vitae, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
What we will do if you approve this, we'll work out sort of an agreement with Peter to make him the contractor, do that work, and the money will come funneling through the Community Development Corporation to pay for it, so we won't be expending town funds on that. One of the things I think is pretty interesting is the idea is to have some activities for young and older people in the community. So I think there's something there for just about everyone if we get the weather to cooperate.
Yeah, I was reading in the very early on, it said the ice would be ready to go on the 19th if we approved it. I'm like, I was thinking that would be a Christmas miracle.
Well, they say you can make ice cubes in the desert, so.
Yeah, that's true. Are we commenting now or we need a motion first?
Why don't you put it on the table?
Put it in the motion.
I move approval.
I would second.
Good, discussion.
The only part that I have concerns about is the potential for, I mean, I know we're doing what we can to protect the town from liability for the use of the rink, but there's a portion of it talking about looking at the possibility of collecting skates and making them available, which opens up a different can of worms.
One I'm not real happy with.
Yeah, I mean,
The insurance company, when they sent us the list of what we needed to do, and they made a little thing assuming the town won't be providing skates. So
Right.
that whole caveat was built around that. So other than that, I'm pretty happy with that proposal. That one, I think.
Yeah, I
is
don't love
problematic.
that. Yeah, you get, it's opening up a whole nother thing. That's all I was talking about, yeah.
That probably wouldn't be happening right away anyway, right? Yeah. Yeah,
I'm on the harbor committee, and I just saw that on the agenda. We haven't seen what's planned. And so I just don't know if there's anything on there that makes a difference. I think there's been conversation about building a shed, which got, that's a different
Yeah,
Mhm.
situation
right.
that we would want to talk about ahead. So all I know is what I've heard here, and we want to have a voice in it. That's all.
Yeah, and those things are just discussion. There's
Yeah.
discussion items. Anything we decide here isn't gonna,
If anybody was gonna be building anything down there, you would come to the harbor committee and then the board of selectmen for approval of that, I would
Yeah.
assume, yeah.
And like I said, I didn't know
Right.
what was suggested, so I didn't know what was part of it.
okay. Any further discussion?
You've done a great job.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Really?
You've raised a lot of money and got it at no cost to the town. It's terrific.
It's flat.
Yeah.
it does help.
It does help. Yeah.
Almost flat.
Yeah.
There is actually quite a bit of pitch to it. I don't mean that to be my opening words, but actually it's not as flat as it might look.
Okay,
Yeah, there's about 18 inches from one side.
really?
So,
Wow,
yeah,
that's quite a bit.
Wow.
it is.
So there could be some alpine skating.
Alpine skating.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll slope the edges of that speed skating.
Do you actually, do the board, I haven't been down there. Do the boards go like up to like 4 feet? or-
They will, yeah, I originally stacked them, the wind blows them down, and about every 2 days I go down there and stack them up again, and the wind blows them down, but eventually when the water's in there,
Mhm.
the end boards will be about waist high, 36 inches.
Great.
And the side boards will be about 24 inches, so it's gonna be, it's gonna look really great, and hopefully it'll be a magnet for all the kids in town, get them off their
Yeah.
races.
Before you know, it, we'll have a food truck down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll come back, maybe Ted will come back for weekends.
There's an idea.
Hot chocolate.
Okay,
Troublemaker.
okay, so we've had a motion and a second. Right,
We do.
good. Any more discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you. Awesome.
Peter, maybe you could.
Great work.
Leave me your contact information. I'm off tomorrow, but I'd like to just get a chance to talk to you about how we just formulate that up. I've got a few ideas.
Yeah.
You know, you could do that. I think probably the whole day Wednesday.
Item C, consideration of amending the 9/7/2021 authorization to accept contributions from the Northeast Harbor Ambulance Service towards technical services associated with the design and bidding of improvements to the Soamesville Fire Station from $21,440 to $30,000.
I move the amendment.
Second.
Good. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh,
No, you're fine.
okay. And none opposed. Okay, unfinished business continued. Item D, consideration of authorizing Highway Superintendent Ben Jacobs to solicit competitive bids for the replacement of deteriorated windows in the town office as described in his December 14, 2022 memo to town manager Derlin Lunt Jr.
I would move authorization to solicit those bids as described in the memo.
Second.
Good. Any discussion? All in favor?
Just wanted to ask, how many windows we're talking?
Oh, a lot.
23.
Yeah, one.
Oh, that's
A
right.
lot of these windows are original.
Right.
It's definitely, it's passed on.
Are they double glazed?
Sorry,
Are those windows double glazed or are they,
I'm not sure.
or single? No.
I was
They are.
just surprised at I mean, that work goes, it's expensive, but it goes relatively quickly, I would think. I mean, I'm surprised that they were talking about, like, we're starting as soon as we could get them going, but cutting off for the summer.
Right.
I mean, how long does it take?
I do not know.
Yeah,
I'll have a better idea.
Yeah, okay.
after I meet with the contractors, but hopefully we can get it done in a short period. of
Yeah.
time and not
Yeah.
have to-
Well, also may depend on how much work they've got, when they can schedule.
Well, I
it,
know,
too. Yeah.
I know.
Also,
do.
hopefully there's no rot beyond. the
Right.
windows.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That'd be good.
Good.
all right. And we voted on that, did we?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Good.
did.
New business, item A, consideration of authorizing Highway Superintendent Ben Jacobs to solicit competitive bids for a new 4x4 diesel powered backhoe for the Highways Division of the Public Works Department.
Move authorization.
Yeah,
Second,
And any discussion?
expensive equipment.
It's not as expensive as a fire truck.
I know, well, you said that the last time, the last 2 weeks ago.
How old is the backhoe?
Not very.
Going on 8 years.
So this is consistent with the CIP for replacement.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
They
Yeah.
used to be 10 years, but we've dropped them to 7 because they cost to keep them after 7 years.
Yeah.
And is the trade-in a better, I mean, do we get a reasonable amount? Because I know people buy those things in the,
We will get probably 30 or 40.
Okay.
That's
because I know there's a market for that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
awesome. All right. All in favor? Item B, consideration of accepting conditional gifts in the form of monetary donations to the Mount Desert Fire Department in memory of Norris Reddish. Said donations will be used only for firefighter training costs as requested by the Reddish family.
I move approval.
Second.
Right, any discussion?
Just, I remember having a discussion at one point way back when with Mike about whether or not they had at one point, they had a 501c3 that had a separate account.
Yeah, an
But they were
association.
working into getting another one, but I don't believe they have that yet. So where would donations be housed? And maybe that's a question for Jake, or, I mean,
Sure. So, Mike brought this to my attention, we serve, essentially, we kind of found about it, through the obituary,
Yeah.
there was a line in there about please send the checks to, and so now we're figuring out what to do. about it.
okay,
My thought is, I've established a, gift revenue account housed within the fire department or, account essentially. That will be used as, specifically for firefighter training in line with the request. And the reporting piece of it is pretty simple, and I can even, come back at the end of all of this with the report if you want to see it. But, accounting for restricted funds is something that we do on a daily basis, and it won't be a challenge.
okay. So would that same account be if people wanted to make donations to the fire department? Or, I mean, because there was a discussion at one point about when the Soamesville, when they had taken over that from the Soamesville Fire Company, when it was still a community center. They weren't sure how to even bill people or how to accept monies. Is that a different question
I
entirely?
would say that's a very different
Okay.
question. I would not, because those would be two different restrictions, I wouldn't account for them in the same account. They would have a different reporting structure. And it would require, I think, an additional, direction from the board as to, what that would mean, and then I would figure out how to account for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've
Yeah.
got a motion, a second, all in favor? All right. Item C, modify 8/15/22 authorization for the use of LED streetlight project bond funds to install a new LED streetlight on Gilpatrick Lane from $2,700 to $36,8601 to account for additional necessary costs incurred in order to accomplish this project.
Move modification.
Second,
All in favor?
Oh, Ben, I got a conflict of interest. My street light is out on Tracy Road. So I'm already following a new code of conduct policy by indicating horse in the game, as they say. So.
Yeah, no light for you. No light for you. Okay. Okay, item D, authorize additional principal payments and acknowledge internal source transfers of remaining balances of various capital projects. Described in memo from Jake Wright, Finance Director.
Move authorization.
Second.
Okay, could you just clarify for everyone what that means?
Sure, during the audit process, we were reviewing various projects. There were several that were identified by Tony Smith as being completed that we had funds on hand, whether they be internal or external sources. The external sources are really the ones that I'm requesting authorization to use those source funds to pay down the associated debt service that was issued in response to those projects. And then
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question. Do you mind if I ask it?
Okay, well, Jake, were you finished?
yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Lincoln Milstein. I'm a resident of Mount Desert. I've asked this question before, but it's very hard to hear the people sitting down, and they are also unidentified. And so I have no idea who's just spoke last. And I can hear all the members of the select board very clearly. And I've asked this question before. It's very hard to record and write down who's exactly speaking, who's identified. And just for the sake of transparency, I have one more, I have another second request that you identify clearly who's speaking and they can be audible. Thank you.
Hi, Lincoln. This is Jake Wright, Finance Director for the town. And just to quickly repeat what I was saying, during the audit process for fiscal year 2022, we reviewed project statuses of several capital projects, and Tony Smith verified completion of several projects that had remaining funds, whether they be internal or external sources. And the external sources identified were bond funds. And so I've identified those remaining balances, and I'm requesting board authorization to use those remaining funds to pay down the associated debt service in line with past practice and best practices as well.
Thank you very much. I recommend that you guys adopt the same policy as in Bar Harbor, where there's a clear microphone when people come up and it's clearly identified and people speak clearly. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jake.
Sure.
All right, so we still need a motion and a second for that.
I'll move this.
Second.
All in favor? Right. Item E, request approval of $160,000 to be used from the wastewater bond reserve account 4050500-24203 to subsidize the 10/1/23 principal payment on the MMBB CWSRF loan 2003 FFRS, and by extension reduce necessary fiscal year 2024 appropriations as described in the memo from Jake Wright, Finance Director.
I move approval. We did the same thing last year, didn't we? Divide up, trying to spread the,
Correct.
right,
That's
yeah.
Jake.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, item F, authorize the Office of the Treasurer to enter into an agreement with the Thomas Agency for delinquent collections of EMS receivables and authorize that uncollected EMS receivables be sent to collections after 90 days.
Move authorization.
Yeah, I would second that.
All in favor?
Well, can we ask, what,
Yeah.
what do we have for, well, I mean, is that a significant number? Or is it?
In
not?
terms of uncollectible.
Yeah, and uncollected, yeah,
So
delinquent collections, EMS receivables.
this is Jake Wright. As of right now, we're still very early in the process to know exactly what our uncollectible rate is.
Okay.
The majority of reduction to AR is in the form of payments and insurance adjustments.
Okay.
And then remaining balances after that, what we're proposing is that we would send those to collections after 90 days. And I think that after a full year of operating, we'd have a much better understanding of the sheer volume and numbers that we're talking about. I plan to start including some reporting associated with that, along with some of the consent agenda items that I normally present to you guys. But where these numbers came from in the proposal, we've contracted with Town of Bar Harbor to be our billing agent. And this essentially mimics their policy so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel to service
Okay.
these for us. And it won't add any administrative inefficiencies to do so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we saw something similar to this come across our desk before.
This is a different authorization. Previously, what you had authorized was allowing me to essentially enter into agreements with providers to accept settlement negotiations.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so this is a little bit different. Now we're talking about after that stage, if there's still a balance, what do we do with it?
Mhm.
And at some point, we'll probably have to analyze a completely uncollectible policy, you know.
Mhm.
I
Right.
think Bar Harbor uses 1 or 2 years where the board would, or the council in their case, would write off uncollectible balances. And ideally, this is a part of the approach to minimize what that 2 years down the road balance looks like.
Okay.
Because we'd be contracting to a contingency fee based delinquent collection agent who has an incentive to go after these collections and get them. And frankly, it's a much better use of funds than having us, you know,
Sure.
call around and try to get people to pay.
Yeah. Thank
What would
you.
a typical fee be?
Their fee is 30%. As far as I can tell, that's very in line. I saw delinquent collection agents a lot in my experience.
No, the fee that you'd be collecting.
Oh,
I mean, what's the range?
for ambulance service.
Mhm.
Mike would be able to, Mike here, no, I want to say, it depends. I know that there's like a mileage calculation in there too. I think I typically see somewhere between around 700 to 750. And insurance usually covers, you know, a substantial portion of that.
You don't know what portion?
Depends on the
depends.
insurance
I know it
company.
depends, but I just wonder what those numbers are that we're talking about collecting.
Mhm. It
Like a couple
varies.
of
pretty wide.
$100.
I typically probably, you know, somewhere between 300, 400.
Oh,
So, and then it's my understanding that when the insurance identifies an actual adjustment, you know, contractual obligation or something, they'll identify patient responsibility,
mhm.
and that's essentially what remains as
I
AR.
see.
That's not written off as an insurance adjustment.
And then, the collector would collect that and take 30% of it.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Yes.
good. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
All in favor? Great. Thank you, Jake. Item G, consider request of $28,800 to be released from the police equipment reserve account 4040100-24405 with a balance of $99,774.06 for permission to expend those funds for the 5 payments as described in the December 13, 2022 memo to Town Manager Derlin Lunt Jr. and Taser quote, and for authorization to sign the Taser purchase agreement with terms as outlined in the quote.
Move approval.
Second,
All in favor?
Is it true, though, that there's only one, you can only have one option?
They still have patent.
That is, I mean, that's nationwide, that's everywhere, every taser, every police officer carries in the world.
Comes through.
And I hope that every police officer owns some stock in that company.
I do not.
how old are these current tasers?
They'll be 5 years
Maybe
old.
5 years?
End of this
Yeah,
year. Yeah.
So that's their life, whether they've been used. Or not.
And this is a new, so it is a new platform where they do have rechargeable batteries, they
Right.
have lifetime cartridges. That was not all previous before, so we were not so much nickel and dime, but we were paying for the cost of upkeep for the 5 years. This is everything.
Cool.
So.
Thank you.
The only point that quote that is attached to that, I think said it expires on the 15th. I have one in hand today that goes to the end of the year, so.
With the same numbers.
Same number.
Perfect.
Good.
Great.
So how do you test them to see if they work?
So they do,
They look for volunteers.
so, beginning of shift, they recommend that everybody arc test them for 5 seconds.
Oh, okay,
So, and then that actually does its own calibration check within, so.
okay. You're not waiting for the summer help to arrive. Good. Okay,
Thank you.
Oh, probably not even.
all in favor? Okay, good. Item H, request approval of Harbor Committee's rate increase effective January 1, 2023, as outlined in Harbor Master John Lemoyne's memo to Town Manager Derlin Lunt Jr. dated December 14, 2022. Increase the non-resident commercial fish aquaculture rates by 10% from $500 to $550. Increase the commercial float operator fee by 10% from $600 to $660, and the per passenger fee from 25 cents to 28 cents.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? And budget schedule review.
You had 2 budgets presented tonight. You
No,
had-
that's the budget
Oh,
schedule
the
review.
the schedule, not the actual. Okay, yeah, that's where you updated that a little bit, right? Added some more dates in there.
So this is Claire Wolfa, town clerk. I'm presenting the draft budget schedule that coordinates all the selecting meetings with other, like the warrant committee and the Luso committee, et cetera. Basically, it's pretty much the same as it is every year. The only thing that's still up for question as to whether or not we want to split the third-party funding meeting to 2 nights instead of doing it all on one.
Mhm.
And do you prefer that week is a holiday on Monday, so you'd have a Tuesday meeting, and would you prefer the second meeting if you want one on Wednesday or Thursday that week?
I don't care.
Couldn't we have, I'm not looking at a calendar, but I'm just thinking, couldn't we have one the following week, or do they have to be back to back?
Traditionally, you have done them back,
I know.
that same week. What do you think? So,
We've usually done it the same week. I think it'd be probably helpful to, get it all done in the same week. I don't know, then we're into the next schedule, it's hard to get, take this, then. That's the interesting. President's Day holiday week, the school breaks, we've only done it that week. We reserved both the Tuesday, the Wednesday, and the Thursday. So we thought maybe Claire and I were discussing it, I think last year we took it night off, so we came back to Thursday and second. Okay. I personally don't care, but. Yeah, it's up to you all, if you didn't want to have meetings, the meeting, the following meeting. The March meeting, my meeting was March.
Well, if we have a choice,
We don't think that's fair.
okay, well, if we have to have them in the same week, I'd rather have them Tuesday, Wednesday, get it over with in one fell swoop. Do you have any preference?
No, that's fine with me.
Make it work.
Okay,
okay,
So
so
it'll be the 20,
the 21st and the 22nd
Oh,
of February. It's in red, 2/21 Tuesday, and then over under warrant committee. Where I had the note
yeah,
about splitting it.
Okay,
And nothing is
Thanks, Brian.
happening as far as the committee, were you involved in a committee that was looking at
Yeah.
that whole process and that,
That, we finished and gave our report at the beginning of
Yeah.
November.
right?
Yeah.
We still need,
It wasn't nothing to do with it when.
yeah, okay,
No.
it's still 2 nights, okay.
all right.
So I asked the question out out in the open, when we've discussed our ethics at the last meeting. Some of the service groups did come up with the idea that, you know, you have board committee members, board selected members, you know, that serve on this. I really don't, you know, are we gonna have to vote on each individual one when we go to vote like we used to do? We're gonna have to go back to our historical way. We used to do like the Red Cross separately, we used to do the Harbor House separately, I'm sorry, the Neighborhood House separately. Are we gonna do all that when it comes time to town meeting, so people can excuse themselves? Or are we gonna do it, you know, during, in the last 10 years, we've combined it as a single number? where
You
it
mean
made
on
it
the
very
warrant? You're talking about on the warrant.
Right, that's what, I want to start the conversation, because I've already had warrant committee members that asked me about that very thing. Are we gonna go back to the old style of doing it, where we voted on every service group separately? You know, hospice will have to be one.
I wouldn't think so.
If I may,
Mhm.
Thanks, Rick.
this is Rick Moore. It might be worthwhile to have the moderator point out to those people in attendance at town meeting that all the separate agencies and their projected awards can be found on page X, and the total amount before you to be voted on this evening is such and such. Any amendments forthcoming from the floor can then be presented at that time to adjust that final number. Well, I don't think there's any value in reading each one separately and voting on each one separately. We are recommending a total number based on all of those listed in your town report. Feel free to thumb through, look for yourself, that's where they are. And if you object or want any of them amended, simply make your motion at that time from the town floor and explain yourself.
But I think, if I understand you right, Phil, you're talking about on the warrant committee conversation. Should the members of the warrant committee be recusing? Is that what you're talking
I
about?
am asking that.
Yeah, not the town, and not on the town floor. He's talking about when the warrant committee, is that a conflict of interest if they're voting
Oh,
to recommend?
I have no idea how they do their business on the warrant committee because I don't attend those meetings, but
Yeah.
I would think it's within their purview to manage it in whatever makes sense for them.
Well,
It sounded to me that like what Andy was telling us last meeting was that even if your committee does not make a final decision on funding or anything of that nature, you still have to hold to those principles. So people need to disclose if they have a conflict of interest with this particular group.
Well, they can abstain also.
Exactly, and that's what I mean, it's the
that's
same
the
idea.
standard thing. I just want to make sure that we were all clear on that, that if you had any interest around, you'd have to abstain.
Yeah, I think that's
I
right.
think when we do, when we're considering the what do you call it, the third party requests. And for our recommendations, we would abstain.
Yeah, Matt used to
Yeah,
routinely abstain from anything. any
If it's
discussion
something
about
we're
everything.
involved in.
That's right.
So I would think the same would go for the
I'm
warrant
good
committee.
with the following, I just want to make sure that there was clarity with the board and with the warrant committee that we all did the same thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
I'm good.
Okay. Good. Any
And
more
that
discussion?
was Phil, just in case.
Yeah, that was Phil.
Lichtenstein.
All right,
we probably couldn't
You
hear.
probably couldn't hear, but sorry.
okay. So,
Okay. Do we need to?
so we don't
move?
need, should we acknowledge that we reviewed it? Okay, I'll take a motion to acknowledge.
Move acknowledgement.
Second,
Good, all in favor? Great. Review, item J, review of general government and debt budgets for fiscal year 23-24.
We're going to do the general government one first.
Sure.
Okay, the general government one. And it's basically, as I said earlier, this is Bill and one time manager, by the way. We've gone through, and when we put in the salary lines, these salary lines in there, we're on the assumption that you would have going to approve the longevity process.
Right.
If you had not, I'd have gone back and readjusted those to whatever you told me to do. So those numbers you see in there do reflect the policies that you just voted. So I wanted to make that very clear.
The one that starts with the BOS. The one,
Yeah.
the packet with the the secretary and goes from there.
5/11/30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
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 Yeah.
but not that second packet.
Yeah.
That's the debt.
okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
No, it seems as though, just from my first glance through it, that, I mean, and possibly this is more of the impact of having Jake revamp and reorganize and do good things for our whole system, that some of these numbers like drop and others jump, and that you've moved things a little bit here and there. Is that
Sure. This is Jake Wright, Finance Director. So I think the big one that you're probably referring to is the police chief line. Actually, no, we haven't gotten to that.
No, we haven't gotten to
Sorry, could you point out?
Well,
an example?
I mean, a little one that goes up 129%, but it's only $100, and then there's training drop, and so there's a lot of little numbers that jump or go down a whole lot. And I don't really understand why. That's,
I mean, I don't think most of those are gonna be attributable to anything I've done. They're gonna
Okay.
be responsive to department heads reviewing actual performance and
Okay.
analyzing future needs.
okay. I mean, they're mostly quite small numbers, but the percent just jumps out.
I wonder about the recruitment line, 52720.
Yeah,
I mean, we could have some turnover in the next year or so, and I think that 20,000 is more practical than the 10.
well, the thing is, what we've discovered during the recruitment is a lot different now. It's a lot more streamlined and it's a lot cheaper. We've gone past the time when we take out huge classified ads in the Portland Press Herald
Right.
or the Bangor Daily News. So I think that 10,000 will go as far as the 20,000 did.
Oh, really?
Because the way that we recruit now is much different. Especially now that we have not a full-time, we have a part-time HR director
Okay.
who will be doing a lot of that internally.
Well,
for
if
us.
you
So
feel that's sufficient.
I do.
That's good enough
That
for
would
me.
still give you, should you have the need to be able to hire a consultant to do a position. But we won't be spending a lot of money on classified ads, and that was really what was driving so
Uh-huh.
much of that money.
Okay, thank you.
I think what it costs us $147 to find that, right?
It was not much, yeah. And I think the one category where you would be like that we know we're gonna need to recruit is in the fire department
Mhm.
potentially. And there's a separate recruitment line in the fire
Right.
department
Oh, okay.
budget as well.
Okay.
that-
This
that
is
kind of
just
addresses some of those.
Okay.
There are with this one.
Well, it's a good question, Omar. Excellent question.
I didn't see anything that.
I really nothing stood out. here.
No.
And your general operating costs, pretty much the state standard, like you said, Jeff, some things go up and down
Yeah.
based on prior usage and anticipated needs, but I didn't see anything there that would be particularly worrisome.
Notwithstanding everything associated with health insurance and
Right.
federal biker and things like that, it's pretty much holding the line.
Yeah, I agree. one good thing about our department heads is they're very careful, but not only do they expend their budgets carefully, but they design them carefully. When I go through there, very rarely do I have a lot of questions and I have to go back and say, I don't understand why you did this, because I know what they're basically what they're thinking.
And I think one thing that's important to be aware of going into this whole process is on the revenue side, there's at least one example of something we expect to change in our favor dramatically that was disclosed a while back. Last year, we estimated $25,000 for interest expense associated with operating accounts. This year, assuming that rates stay similar based on what we had recently negotiated during the solicitation process, I'm thinking that that's going to be anywhere between $300,000 and $500,000. And that's a direct reduction essentially to tax burden. And so where you see some increases on the budget side, we've taken steps to capitalize on the alternative implications to these changing rate environments as well.
Do you foresee any impact of the senior tax freeze, property tax freeze? I know that we don't know yet, the approvals haven't gone through, but I believe quite a few people have signed up for that.
In terms of our finances, it shouldn't have any implications because it's my understanding the state is promising to pay the difference.
Reimburse that.
Right, and so the only question would potentially be about cash flow, but we have a very sufficient operating reserve set up and everything that I don't foresee any issues with cash flow, and that would really, as far as I'm aware, that would be the only concern on our side, is that if we had to wait for the state to cut us a check, there could be a cash flow issue, but that's why we have operating reserves.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
good to hear.
Let me know if I got any of that wrong.
Depends on the scale of the budget increase, because that's gonna be a direct, factor in how much revenue will be received from the state.
Right,
I estimated that about a 3% increase on the budget, which has been our average for a long time. And right now, that means we're about a $25,000 liability for that stabilized amount that the state will be reimbursing us, so it's not gonna break the bank.
okay, thank you.
And it's a 6-month deferment,
Mhm.
get payment in January, so.
Okay, thanks.
What would be very helpful, Gus, is if it's there, one column, one little narrow column, you can put in there when the bond retires.
Sure.
Okay. So we know what we're looking at here. When we look at $353,334. It's straight across.
Okay, I did do that analysis, and I can go over that when we go over it.
That'd be great. Okay.
Because there's several that specifically in fiscal year 24, there are 2 that will be maturing, and the sum of those payments essentially wipes out the increase that you're seeing this year. And that's why fluctuations in the debt budget are fairly standard because of that. We've been seeing declines over the last few years. And the estimated debt service came in right at what I had estimated during town meeting. So I think the only thing that Derla and I had discussed that would potentially address the concern about fluctuating debt service is potentially creating a CIP style reserve account for debt service payments, where you could try to level off the year-over-year funding. I don't have it fleshed out right now, but that might be an approach for future years where you, like, for example, this year, it goes up 450,000, and then next year it goes down 389,000. And potentially there are things I think we could do with town meeting approval, of course, that would stabilize that effect to taxpayers, and also allow us to capitalize on interest and essentially subsidize some of the impact of the payment. That was a pretty standard approach to things that I saw in my prior career. And over time, these types of reserve accounts essentially wiped out the impact of debt service to taxpayers. And all of that is dependent, obviously, on to what extent it's funded and everything. But I think there are ways that we could discuss potentially leveling out the impact year over year to fluctuations in the debt budget.
Okay, great. I got nothing else.
Okay,
What do we do? We don't have to move or anything on any of that. Just to review.
You can just, yeah,
okay,
acknowledge that we reviewed it, perhaps.
so it's now.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Okay, any other business?
I just want, Mr. Milstein, are you still on?
Up there.
Is muted.
I have nothing else.
All right, here he is.
Mr. Milstein.
Yes,
this is Rick. I just wanted to congratulate you on your most recent award.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Morris. I appreciate it very much that you mentioned that.
It's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you so much.
That's a good point.
Let's give him
Thank
a
you for-
round of applause.
Yeah, no,
Right.
You're the only town that would do that. Thank you. And I really appreciate your guidance and management of the town that I live in. Thank you.
you. All right, any other business?
Nothing else.
Okay, well, then I guess we'll move on to the treasurer's warrants. Approve and sign treasurer's warrants as shown, town invoice AP 2339 in the amount of $634,017.44.
Move approval.
Second,
All in favor? Approve sign treasurer's payroll, state fees and payroll benefit warrants as shown. State fees and payroll benefits AP 2337, AP 2338, town payroll PR 2313 in the amount of $224,331.41.
move approval,
Second.
All in favor? And acknowledge treasurer's town voided disbursements and school board AP payroll warrants as shown. School invoices AP 6, school payroll PR 12, voided disbursements V 2304 for a net total of $147,568.34.
move acknowledgement,
Second.
All in favor? Motion to adjourn.
so move.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you. So do we leave